So you mentioned in your intro that game thinking actually helps to save billions of hours for entrepreneurs or product designers. So maybe if we can go there, what do you think are some of the top reasons product ideas failing? Maybe you have done a lot of consulting with many clients. So if you can summarize, maybe what are the top root causes, do you think?
So there's a lot of different ones. The world is a complex place. But by far the most common reason that products fail is a team builds something that they think is the right thing, but that the market or the people, their customers that need to use it, don't really need. So building things people don't need, building features people don't need, or a small part of a market needs is by far the most common failing. And it takes many different forms, that type of failure. But if you dig in, you find that the root cause is often that the team didn't really validate the ideas, or they gave it lip service, but they didn't really let the ideas have room to fail. That's something that happens a lot. Often, if we go back to politics, often there'll be a culture at a company where executives rise up and get further by saying, I have a great idea. Let's do my great idea. And that's not actually how really good ideas get validated, but it can be scary to say no to the rising star or the big boss. So people don't say no. That can be part of what goes on. The other thing that can happen, and this is where you really need rapid innovation skills, not just innovation skills, is the market can change right out from under you. We published a video recently, a little mini case study of an Indian client of ours, a brilliant, very successful serial entrepreneur, 2 exits. Love this guy, learned a lot from him. But he had a point, and some of his companies were, IT outsourcing companies that grew and grew. And there was a point where business software was switching to SaaS a few years back, and it was a huge shakeup in his industry. And he was really struggling with it. He came into our game thinking training programs and used game thinking to change the way he approached the product because the whole industry was getting pulled out from under him. And that happens repeatedly. If you're in tech, disruption is the name of the game, right, Henry?
Yeah, that's correct.
It's how it goes. You can't just go, oh, we're done. I work with VP of engineering, head of engineering all the time on leadership teams, tackling tough product issues. And it is very much a moving target. You can make yourself crazy by trying to stay up to date on everything. You have to pick your battles. You have to pick your stack, right? And really invest. The thing that game thinking brings to the table is a lot of techniques from the games industry, but also from the tech and product industry of how to test ideas early and let yourself be wrong on the path to being right, which again, it's easy to give lip service to. It's really hard to implement for political reasons, for I don't know how to do it reasons. And what we do is make it step by step easy to implement. And the reason that we developed this is really simple: burning market need. If anyone listening, including you, Henry, and I've got 30 stories like this, if anyone listening has ever been part of a project you were really excited about, and then you shipped it, and then you get that terrible feeling in your stomach, and you're like, this isn't catching on. This isn't working. This is not how I thought it was going to go. It's very frustrating to think that you have to even build a prototype to do that or design detailed screens. You don't. What I learned working on hits is that you can use low fidelity storyboards, sketches, all kinds of techniques like that to figure out what works and what doesn't without detailed designs and without building a thing. The building and design goes on in parallel, but that's not the fastest way to learn. And once I discovered that and I saw hit after hit use these techniques while a lot of projects I worked on didn't, I thought, hold up, more people need to know about this. And that's why I say saving billions of hours. There's really 3 core ideas, and we've built product sprints around them. And I don't want to overwhelm you with all the details because it's a pretty sophisticated system and it works. But there's really 3 core ideas. The first is who you talk to. And it turns out we have this concept of super fans. It means high need, special beachhead niche of your market. That's what it means. And finding a particular slice of your market that is seeking solutions, and they show you through their behavior, not their words and aspirations, that they're looking for the solution. Finding that slice of your market isn't easy, which is why we have all these templates and guidance. But when you do, 5 to 7 of those people is more valuable than thousands of demographically relevant people that don't have those qualities. So there's a surgical precision in testing your ideas that will speed up your ability to hit the mark and build the right product like 100 times. It's astonishing. And we call that super fans. And we have a technique called the super fan funnel. So that's one idea, is you don't just talk to your customers or your potential customers. You talk to really specific ones that represent exactly the people that are going to give you the feedback you need to listen to make your product decisions. The second idea is really very much out of gaming. It's something we call the core loop, or the core habit loop, or the core learning loop, or the compulsion loop. But in gaming, at least the multiplayer online gaming that I practice, you're thinking about retention from the get-go because, often the business model is built around that, free to play or subscription. So how do you do that? Well, you have to have a habit. You have to have like stuff they do over and over again that pulls them back. But the stuff can't be boring. It has to get more interesting over time. How do you solve that problem? Well, you build a learning loop or a habit loop that has some sort of repeatable, pleasurable activity in it that describes most games. Usually there's a chain of activities. But the loop itself, the journey it's embedded in, changes over time. It gets more interesting over time. That's what keeps people around. And it's so that combo, which is something I just learned working on, dozens of games, including these massive hits, is something that any product can adopt if you want to drive retention. It's not at all limited to games. But you don't see it in popular methodologies like design thinking or lean agile or even jobs to be done, all of which we embrace and pull the best elements from. You don't see how you build a sticky habit loop. It would be nice to do it, but how do you do it? And then who do you talk to if you want to really test your ideas on the right people quickly in rough form? And then the third piece is concept storyboards. And this is a mix of what game designers call paper prototyping, where let's say you're doing a board game or even other kinds of games. And some UX people do this, cut up little paper pieces. Or if you're doing a board game, you mock up, with cardboard and paint or markers, your game pieces, and you might work out the rules of the game, with your buddies over afternoon tea on your dining room table. Like that would be paper prototyping. Done a lot of that. It's low fidelity prototyping. A lot of people understand this. But you also look at what Pixar does with their storyboarding, and they do rough storyboarding for like a year, working out their story, testing it on various people before they commit to the very expensive and detailed process of animation. So you don't need to do it for a year, but it turns out that you can storyboard your end-to-end experience, not the details of the screens, not your prototype, but just what experience do we want to deliver? You can do that before you've built anything, before you've designed anything, before you've committed to a design direction. You can do it for features, major features you're thinking of launching. And you can test it, especially if you know exactly the right people to test it on. Those three things: super fan funnel to find the right people, loop design to create the experience that people will want to stick around for, end-to-end concept testing so you don't get lost in the weeds and you actually figure out your experience. Those three things together as a system, working as a system where the input of one chunk is the output of the previous, right? For every engineer out there, I have a big engineering background. I built a lot of systems. And that's how it goes. You modularize it and you figure out your inputs and outputs. And that's how game thinking works. we've run our signature training program, which is the Game Thinking Masterclass. Hundreds of people, dozens and dozens of teams have run through it. And the thing I most often hear, a few things. One, I wish I'd done that 6 months ago. So if you're wondering if it's like too early, it's like the earlier the better. But you can also do it once your product is out there and you're trying to fix your leaky bucket retention issues. A lot of people do that. The other thing we hear all the time is that saved me probably a year, 9 months to a year. I thought, now I know something I thought it was going to take me a year to figure out. And that's why we do what we do, because we see the results and we hear not from what we think, but what the people who did it think, how much time they think it saved them.